Record. I'm going to admit. Well, I guess we got 8 or 9 folks that are jumping in right now. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's kind of fun to watch people pop into the screen as we go. Hello, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces, a couple new ones. Welcome to the Ambitious Speaker Collective. You are all ambitious speakers, so you're in the right place. Yay! I see the cheering. I'm going to keep an eye on new folks jumping in here. All right. And this is Pat Dwyer, everybody.
Hi, gang.
We'll hear more about him. I'm just one of these guys. I have to wait for the top of the hour. I like to start on time, as you all know, but I can't start early. That's one of the cardinal rules. So we are at top of the hour. I am recording for those of you who should just know about that. Boy, people are all popping in here right there. Okay, a couple of quick things as we get started. A couple just quick announcements, and then we'll get into right into the stuff. For those of you who I did go to Influence and I took notes on there. If you're interested, if you haven't already, I've got a Google Doc, and I will put something in the chat right now. If you're interested in notes that I took, you are welcome to request access. Obviously, it's through the lens of what I need and stuff. So I tried to create. Oh, Sherry, can you mute? I got you. I got you. You're good. There's always one in the crowd. So those notes, and then upcoming, we are starting to do. And this is Jen's idea. We're going to start booking some of these things a little further out, so you guys can plan accordingly on your calendars. It's always tricky because with my calendar, with the experts that we bring in their calendars, it's hard to go too far out. But hopefully that's helpful. So the next one is September 12th. You should all be aware of this, but in case you don't know, it's out there. It's out in the master doc too. I always update that so you have kind of a one-stop shop. But that is going to be Nikki Groom, who is fantastic. She's a brander. She's a website builder. She actually built my website. So if you like anything about my website, you might appreciate her. But she's going to come in and we're going to do something a little bit different with her. We're actually going to do these 8 or 10 minute hot seats where she's going to take a look at your brand, take a look at your website, and give some real-time feedback. And I know we were already booked at how many people have said they want those spots, but if you're not on the list, get on the list just in case we end up being able to do more or some people cancel and that sort of thing. So those are, sorry, I'm not a good multitasker. I'm like, okay, all these people jumping in here. But those are the quick updates. So now I want to introduce you all to Pat Dwyer. Pat is I say he's a buddy of mine. He might not admit to that, but we've become speaking buddies. We've done a couple of showcases together, both with Midwest Speakers Bureau, nationally speaking. Pat was on the stage at Influence doing some fun things as well. But he's one of these guys. He's just incredibly talented, incredibly gifted in terms of writing. And he's humble, so you'll see that come through too. But just a great writer, a great, I'll say, actor, a great speaker, all of those things. And so when we wanted to talk about stagecraft, kind of the idea of how do we get better on stage, he was the first one I thought of, and he was gracious enough to say, "Yeah, let's spend some time together." He keeps telling me this whole week he's been like, "I'm super excited about sharing with some of those folks." So he's excited to be here, and I know we spend a lot of our time talking about how do we get the gig, how do we do the business side of things, but we also have talked about that. One of the best things we can do to grow our business is just be really good on stage. And that includes content, but it also includes, I'll say, performance, for lack of a better word. And so that's why we brought Pat on. So, Pat, why don't you, I'll catch up in the chats here. Well, you maybe just give a quick synopsis of who you are and your history and all that kind of stuff.
Well, hi, friends. How are you? Uh, what's my history? My history is let's talk about how I got into this silly business, anyways. So, I spent about 15 years with Chicago's improv and sketch comedy scene. So, I worked for Second City. I worked for a place called IO Theater. I worked for Comedy Sports for a long time. I can tell some of y'all are all over the country at this point. From what I can tell. So, and by what I can tell, I mean you all have a background that might mean I don't know. It doesn't matter. Any Hoosiers. Um, I spent a good long time touring the country doing comedy for a living, and then I don't know if you've heard of it. I had children. And we had to figure out a way to feed them because improv was great, comedy was great for me, and maybe sometimes my wife, but not anybody beyond that. So we had to figure out a way to continue the process, continue it to get bigger and have a good time and do the things that I wanted to do. Truth be told, I met with somebody who was a professional networker in the world of business. And I said, here's what I can do. I've worked at startup companies. I've worked at in management for a bunch of different things, but I don't know what I can do that would be a career because I was just using things to fuel the comedy side of my life. And he stopped me after a while and said, "No, you should just be a speaker." Who knew that was a job? Turns out it is, and it's quite fun. And it's lucrative, which is a delightful surprise. So I have been since, let's see, I've been doing this. I think I officially started my business in 2017. Then COVID happened, which went well for all of us. And all my gigs disappeared. And then what we decided to do was we sold everything we had. We bought an RV and we took off across the country for a year, which turned out to be the most cathartic, wonderful, delightful thing for my business I could have ever done because I truly determined during that time who I was as a speaker, what my brand was as a speaker, what I was able to become and be within that framework. And honestly, the things that I did really well in Chicago on stage I made that the brand. So for me, voice is very, very important. And being the person that I am off stage, the only difference between off stage from a client perspective and from an on stage experience is just I ratchet it up a little bit. So like I get a little bit crazier. For instance, my daughter, who is 10, went with me on she really wanted to go out to a gig with me, and there was one nearby. So I took her with me. We got to stay overnight. She was very excited about staying in a hotel. And she said to me, and it's really weird. This sounds like an Instagram thing, like I'm making this up, but this is actually said this. She said, "Dad, you're like three different people. You're the person that I know. Then with the client, you're like you, but a little bit, you're like a lot." And then on stage, you're a lot, a lot. I was like, yep, that's what they purchased. So that's what we're doing. Yep, exactly. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's what we do. I'm this is my full-time job. It's pretty great. I really love it a lot. We're doing pretty good. I don't know. What else do I get to say, Steve? Anything
And I
else?
know, no, you're awesome. And I know you do. Let's talk a little bit about just your business model because everybody's kind of in a different place. Some people are keynote only, some people are training only, different things. So what I know about you is you're a keynoter and an MC primarily. You also do like coaching, like one-on-one speaker coaching, people trying to get better at their craft and that sort of thing. Is that, but from a speaking perspective, is that your model pretty much keynotes and MC? Or are you doing workshops? Are you doing trainings?
No, I don't believe in that stuff. People can piss off. That's what. No, I'm just sorry. No, no, I am predominantly keynoting. I'd say it's about 80% of the time I'm keynoting. 20% I do MC. A lot of the time it is they want something extra and it's kind of an upsell, or they want if they are like, well, we don't know what to do with this, I offer it up as a solution. I will do workshops, which here's a tip for you. Call them deep dives if they're compounding upon your content because it's about a $3,000 difference. If you say workshops, they won't pay you. If you say deep dive, they're like, ooh, it's more info. The audience is predominantly stupid as hell. So like, this is great for all of us. So so it's that I do quite a bit of coaching on the side. Coaching is wrong. I call it creative consulting because one thing that Second City taught me was not to write people into shows that they can't do. So from a coaching perspective, I call it creative consulting literally because we're just taking what you do and enhancing how you do it. Steve and I have worked together in the past, and it's I don't know, Steve, maybe you would say it's enhancing what you do, but it's also from a structural perspective, how to set you up for more success. So then we work together to keep that going, and we work, and then you go and you do it, and then you come back, and then we talk about it, and then you go. So because this world is a lot like stand up. As much as I never wanted to be a stand-up comedian, this is very much like stand-up. You have your program, you work it, then you go out and you do it, and then you come back and you work it again, and you go out and you come out and work it again. And it's a continuous process of that. So what I do is just kind of help enhance that process. The other thing that I'm doing right now, we're calling it the Speakers Comedy Adventure. It's in Chicago. Right now, it's once a year. I think it's coming up in September. Yes, I don't know the dates right now, but it's on my website. And what we're doing is we go to Chicago. We have a 2-day seminar of how to be funnier, how to be better on stage, things like that. And then we all go to a Second City show together or a comedy sports show or something like that. Then the next day, we have a brunch with the cast and the directors and things like that. And here, truth be told, they're just my friends. And I go, hey, you want me to buy you breakfast? And they go, yeah, okay. And then we all have breakfast together. It's really great. Um, but that's a really fun experience. So that's on my website, patdwyerwastaken.com, because I tried to buy patdwyer.com, but somebody bought it. So now I have patdwyerwastaken.com.
Isn't that great? We get so many speakers that say, "What do I do if my name's already taken?" We'll add speaking to the end of it or something like that. And Pat's like, "No, no, I just call it patdwyerwastaken.com." And so that kind of is very on brand for you. I think one of the things that you've taught me kind of along this journey a little bit too is the importance of staying true to yourself. I think that, I think a lot of us, we look at Pat Dwyer, we look at comedians, we're like, oh, I just want to be that funny person. I want to make people laugh like that and all of those things. And I think, it's easy to get caught up and say like, oh, I'm going to start doing the same things. But, personality or delivery wise, I'm never going to be Pat Dwyer. I mean, just, you're never going to be the same way that I am either. And I think, creative consulting or whatever, as we think about how do we become funnier, how do we improve our craft on stage, I think it's very important, I think, to really understand who you are and who you want to be on stage versus trying to mimic somebody else. And how do we integrate more humor? How do we integrate, more blocking? How do we integrate more of that stuff into who we are and what we want to deliver? Because it's a tough game because we watch people and we're like, I want to be that person, and we're maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I do add to that. I really believe all of this is music. We're making music for an audience, right?
Mm.
And if we are, we can all do cover songs. Like that's fine. But it's the artists or the musicians that are themselves that are the ones that, like Taylor Swift's a great example. Like she's very Taylor Swift. Like there's a lot of people trying to be her, but she never is not her in her music writing, in the way that she does chord progressions, in the way that she creates what she's building. It's very much her. And I think that the people have often said to me, "Oh my gosh, how do you do improv? It seems so scary." It's not scary because it's just life. I just do it faster. Like I just had enough practice that I just react faster than everybody else. And then that surprise is what causes people to laugh over and over again.
Mm.
It's really no difference. So I mean, I think similarly to us as speakers, as we are finding our own music and as we are finding who we are as people, and just being that a lot and being unapologetically who we are, the audience
Mm.
will respond to that. And we can talk about that a little bit more later. But I think like we're just trying the ultimate thing here, and I'm going to say this probably a good amount is just we're just the cool kids at the party. Like nobody's cool. Nobody's cool. Like the kids in high school, they were actively not cool, but they believed it, and so did we. And that's 100% of what we do. It's just smoke and mirrors, friends. Like I'm like, am I? All speakers are predominantly broken. Like we're all broken people, but does our broken work in favor of corporate or not? That's really where that works out. Like,
Mm. That's so good. Well, let's talk a little bit about, and again, just if you're new to the group, the way we generally do things is just, I'll interview Pat for a little while. If you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Otherwise, at some point, we'll just open it up to questions you guys can ask specifically about your business or whatever follow-up questions you have for Pat. But I just want to, you and I chatted a little bit beforehand, like what is the overarching word for this? And kind of stagecraft is one of the words that kind of came out. When you think about stagecraft, Pat, what are the different elements that we're talking about?
sure. From a stagecraft perspective, there's a lot of nuance to a lot of this, and I think like in talking about who we are as people and our voice on stage, that's going to dictate how you talk to your audience. I think that the easiest thing to do from an early speaker perspective is to move what we call the fourth wall behind the audience. So, has anybody heard of the fourth wall? Some of y'all know what that is, maybe? No. Some of you go, no, I do not, Pat Dwyer. Go away. Yep, fair enough. The fourth wall in theater is the fake wall if you're watching a play that the audience can see through. So it's the where the stage stops and the audience begins. They call that the fourth wall. So if you are in a play, you pretend that there's a wall there and you can't see the audience. The audience is looking in on what is happening that day. When I say break the fourth wall, they do it in movies a lot. If anybody's seen Deadpool, is a great example. Deadpool looks right at camera and just says stuff all the time. That's breaking the fourth wall. So for us as speakers, when I say extend the fourth wall beyond the audience, it's very similar to Cats. I hate to say it, guys. The musical Cats, which is we all have our own opinions. I'm gonna say it's a train wreck, but that's just me. And some of y'all just like turned off your cameras. I get it. So Cats was the first musical on Broadway that they built the whole audience into the play. So there were like junkyard crud on all the walls, all the way behind the audience. And the show started with the cats coming out of the audience and walking onto stage. They did that because from that point on, the audience does not know if they are in it or if they are watching it. And that made people lean forward. That makes people be more engaged in the whole storyline. So for us as speakers, the easiest thing to do is point at somebody in the back of the room and say, like, yeah, that guy knows. Like it could be the guys with the cameras, it could be the person sitting in the back. Doesn't matter. As long as they know you can see everybody, they do not know if they are safe. Not in a scary way. They just don't know if you can or cannot call on them. They are now part of the show, part of the program, instead of watching, where they can be on their phones, that they can write, they can do whatever they want. So bringing them into what you're creating will always create something that is more fun for an audience, truthfully. Now, from a stagecraft perspective, you will hear a lot of people say, like, yeah, I mean, it drives me nuts, but like people will be like, okay, at this point, you're going to walk on the left, and then you're going to talk in the middle, and then you're going to walk on the right. And that's how they know where the chapters are in your story. Or you could be a person and just talk to them and like move around the stage as you would. But here's the key. You want to move for purpose every single time. So if you have something that is emotionally driving you in your story, that's a time to move because you have a crescendo in that musicality. So then you move. That makes sense to me. If you're building a scene, you want to be off to the side. I mean, like for instance, my grandmother's house, they have there was a large fireplace and there was a door and there was all stuff. So you're building the scene. You can even walk through it and show the audience where it is because as you're doing it, the audience creates it with you. If there's one thing I know from improv, we were creating all sorts of stuff that the audience was with us before.
Hmm.
I have a buddy who every time he drinks on stage, he'll like have a drink and he'll carry it around. He will always take it off stage and put it down before he's done pretending it exists because the audience sees it. If you create a table and you walk through that table, the audience knows because everybody's imagination just works that way. So from a perspective of where you are on stage, purposeful is important, but there has to be a reason why you move all the time. So that's stagecraft in regards to the theatrical side of stuff. But in regards to engaging an audience, that breaking the fourth wall is very important. Also, the idea of just like using the room to your advantage. So I don't know how big all y'all have ever spoken in, but if there's a room and they've got the little like the straight down lights that are in almost every conference area ever, somebody is sitting underneath that light. You can use that person as your volunteer because they're well lit. They don't know that that's what's going on, but as soon as the audience, everybody knows who you're talking about because it's like a theater. So if you can treat the room like the stage, then how can you build that to your advantage? How about that?
Oh,
Any questions about that? I said a lot there,
I
so
have 6,000 questions, I think.
great. I love it.
I'll try to narrow it down. So I mean, we covered a lot of stuff too. Let me before we dig into some of those a little bit more in depth. How about do you consider the script, the words that you actually say, whether it's a scripted or not, is that part of stagecraft or is that really like that's a different piece? You know what I mean? Like obviously it's related, but how do you
Yeah.
view the words that you say?
I think they're very important. I am not because of my improv background and because scripts freak me out. I am usually just bullet points and then I work my way. They're very, very detailed bullet points. They might as well be scripts, but if I say that
Mhm.
to myself, I freak out, so I don't do it. It's just my game. This is just for me, gang. Like, you know what? The I think that the script is exceptionally important because that's where you can learn. I'm going to use this term. It might sound crazy. We manipulate our audience. That's what we do. We emotionally manipulate them to get them to where we want them to go. So if we are going to just go ahead and use the word manipulate anyways, a script is a great way to fine tune your manipulation to get them emotionally and mentally to where you need them to go, which is, I mean, for instance, Steve, great example. Steve writes everything, and I can't because if I do that, I'm worried that I've missed something versus going and feeling the audience in real time. One of my strengths on stage is that every program is live. Like I don't know, I know what's going to happen, but I don't know how it's going to happen. And that is something that people buy when people say authentic. We want somebody who's authentic. I thought authenticity is huge in the marketplace right now. What authenticity is you being a real person in real time with people. And so for
Yeah.
me, I am highly authentic because I'm not exactly making it up all the time, but I might as well be. So I do think the script is important. I think that it is easy to work. I think for new speakers especially, it is very nice to have, but I would also encourage you to have a bullet point because then you can rearrange easier of like, okay, I
Mhm.
wonder if this whole section, if it came before, how does that flow work? How does that conversation work? Because from a script perspective and building your script and building your program, everything needs to be a domino that hits something else that makes a slightly larger revelation for your audience. If you are out of order, you might be jumping forwards and jumping backwards and going a little bit further and then a little bit backwards. And that causes a lot of whiplash for your audience. If you can create a space where they just hit the next thing and whatever built before, even if they don't know it's coming, builds on the next thing or three steps down, they lose their minds because it feels like a magic trick. Because really, what we are doing is a magic trick for them in many respects. They don't know how we do this. It's just, I mean, speaking, music, comedy, it's all math. All of it is math. So figure out what equation works for you, how I would say
That's good. As a math nerd, I appreciate that. And I think from a scripting perspective, I mean, just so you kind of a little backdoor into my world, I do script everything, but I've never used a script. Like if that makes sense, it's kind of weird because whenever I've tried to like remember what to say, I lose the authenticity immediately. And
it.
so I'm kind of like you. I script it so that I can practice it and think about the phrasing that I do like to use. But by the time it's actually showtime, I have my slides, I got my outline, and I say some of the stuff, of course, but I have found that that actually gets in the way of it. But I still go back to the script to say, like, oh no, shoot, I missed this point. This is what I wanted to say. So I think there's kind of a hybrid approach. I want to jump in, Denny. I saw your question about marketing. We're going to focus more on stagecraft today. Versus the marketing side of things. But if we have time, we'll get into some of those open questions and you can ask about marketing. But I do see Jen's question here, and maybe it's one to address Pat now because it's kind of right in line with what you're saying. She says, if you use improv concepts on stage, how do you make sure to deliver a consistent experience? Are there parts that you memorize and others that you deliver the same?
Um, uh, so here's the fun thing about what we do. I'm going to say something really bad right now. They don't know what they're buying. They have no freaking clue. So they also don't know what was supposed to happen. So that's a fun rule. And it also takes a lot of pressure off of you. They don't know what the hell they're doing. So from an improv perspective, I control because I've been doing improv for so long. I know almost consistently what they're going to say and what they're going to think and how they're going to treat the exercises that I do. I call them exercises. I never say improv because people freak out, especially in corporate. They're like, "What are we doing?" I'm like, "Yep, got it. We're just gonna do some exercises." They can do that. That's fine. You say improv games, they lose their minds. So I have a lot of structure and a lot of tangible information, and I use improv in my program to let them live it out. so that they can embody it and become a part of what we're talking about. And so that truthfully, it makes more sense. And I think a lot of people use exercises in that way. I just have a lot more physicalized exercises that let people be on their feet, or we're doing something in front of somebody and then we're talking about what we saw. For instance, there's a game that I like to play called Dr. Know-It-All, where there are six people up on stage and they each are allowed to say one word at a time down the row over and over again. And then I talk a lot about communication. I talk a lot about teamwork. I talk a lot about how we have to rely on other people to help us a lot, but they don't know any of that's coming. But every time I do it, they make the same three mistakes. That's because I've been doing this for 20 years. Like I know that they're going to do that. And so I use the Socratic method to just go, cool, what do we see? Oh yeah, I bet you did. And then I say the same crap that I always say. From a I mean, if I were to do an entire improv-based keynote, which I've done before, that is more just exercises and we process them. But again, it's controlled because I know basically what's going to happen, or I can channel them towards where I need them to go. Again, I mean, I'm not really like doing improv in the way of like an improv game. But even that, for however many, I mean, I was doing 10 shows a week in Chicago of improv for, oh gosh, I want to say like 8 years. I was doing 10 shows a week. And so you get pretty good at like knowing each other, also knowing what's going to happen, knowing where you can insert yourself, knowing how to break the games that we've played 100 times. So it's a lot. That's what I mean when I say it's a magic trick. A magic trick is 100% controlled. It's letting the audience know if it is controlled or not that makes the stakes more or less important to the audience.
Oh, it's so good. So we got one more follow-up here from Maddie.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are responsive to your audience. What amount of rabbit trail following do you do during a speech when you notice that your audience is really responding to something you said or a new slide? Do you follow that reaction a little bit, or do you try to stay on point? And if you do veer off just a little bit, what are your strategies for picking back up in the speech?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yes to all things, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't like the word rabbit hole is scary to me because it seems as though it is an adventure that I haven't taken before, I
Hmm.
guess. I think, I mean, this is reps. Like that kind of thing is just reps. The more you do this, the easier it's going to be to get back on track. Like do as many program shows as you possibly can, as often as you possibly can, and you'll just start to learn mob mentality of your audience. I think that for me, with the rabbit hole question, those things happen. Absolutely. The best way that I've found to just get back on track is to just go, cool, cool, cool. Okay, so we're talking about that. And then just get back on track because it is in that way. My brand is very live feeling. So because it is alive, I've given myself permission to be a little rough around the edges. There are corporations that will not hire me because I am a little bit rough around the edges. So that being said, I've learned how to dial it up or dial it down, dial it up or dial it down so that I can be a little bit more professional or not. But truthfully, even the most professional, staunch banks that I've worked for are like, this is such a refresh because like we're so used to just being so, stuffy that like this is really nice for us to see that you can deliver actual information and be a person. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, welcome. That's what a community bank does. Don't tell them I said that. So yeah, that's what does that answer that question for the most part, Maddie?
Okay.
I mean, it's just, I think it's just Maddie's note taker. So let's say
Oh,
a whole bunch of
she's
stuff
there. I
right
see her. I
now.
see her
Oh no,
nodding.
Maddie's in the middle.
I'm here,
Okay,
right here.
I
Yeah,
saw
that's it.
sorry, your note taker's in this corner, and I didn't see your name down there, so that's better.
You can kick
Yeah.
that note taker out, Steve.
What was that?
Yeah, no, that answers it. That answers the question. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Pat, I have people add their note taker things on here, so it looks like there's more people attending than
Yeah, that's
otherwise.
important.
That's
Yeah, that's what I would do. Absolutely.
I
I've
get
got one. I
credit
can put it
for.
in here too if you want. That's fine.
So I got a couple follow-ups. One is okay. So I mean, we hear all the time that I think for if we want to get more comfortable on stage or using humor, that sort of thing, doing things like you do, doing things like stand-up comedy are great tools. But I think for a lot of us, it's kind of not our natural bent is to be funny, if you will. I mean, we're all funny in our own way, but you know what I mean? We're not the improv people, we're not the stand-up comedy, we're not the ones that are comfortable just kind of riffing from stage, all of that. So for the folks that are like more like that, what kind
Yeah.
of tips do you have, I guess, for bringing people into the talk? You mentioned one time about, hey, you can call out somebody in the back row, or there's cats if you have a big production. But what are some other ways to help the audience feel like they're part of it without actually, doing a big conga line through the whole auditorium, where it's just sort of like it's still kind of a speech, if you will. How do we bring people into that and make them feel like they're part of it when it's just a speech?
Yeah, I think the mistake that people make, the number one mistake that people make regarding bringing their audience in is they ask a question they actually don't want an answer to.
Hmm.
So the one that drives me the most nuts is when people are like, yes or yes. Like, you know what? Honestly, as an audience member, I'm in the back like, piss off. Good
Like
God.
say
You
that again,
ask
the
me a
yes or
question.
yes. What do you mean
Yeah,
by that?
yes or people are like, yes or yes. Like, why
Oh.
why are you even talking to me? And it's a way, so really what it is it's pattern disruption. The best way to engage your audience is to change how you're doing something for just a fraction of a moment to get them to wake back up. So if we are talking about music and your whole program is music, if you're playing one melody and then somebody goes in the background, everybody in the audience is gonna go, what? So if
It's
you
like
can
it's like
create
Bob Dylan going, "Zzz,"
yeah, absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, if you can create a moment that feels different in the pattern that you've created, because that's why we as humans are alive is pattern recognition, right?
Hmm.
That's what we are doing for our audience is we're creating patterns. That's why we say in comedy, but everywhere else, everything comes in threes because the first thing happens, the second thing might establish a pattern, and the third thing is comforting because it does establish the pattern we think we've created or that we think we see. That's also why we get a lot of false positives on things that we think are patterns that are not, definitely not patterns. Because we're like, oh, I see a commonality. Oh, I see another commonality. Oh, here we are. And then you're like, well, that's a total, here. I don't know where you got that from. Good for you, but that's not right. So I think from keeping an audience engaged, pattern disruption will always do that. So changing how you are saying something, change moment. It could be as simple as a pause. Like if I'm talking a lot and then I don't, everybody looks up. Like all y'all look up, even the people who aren't on camera, they just looked up too. Like, wait, did his sound go out? What's happening? So like that's a great way to change the pattern. Silence is very, very important. And I think it's scary. It's real scary on stage to have silence because you think you need to deliver all the time. Humans have silence in life. And if we are just doing parts of life, then it's okay to have a little bit of silence. But it's also great use of timing and patterning and helping the audience be with you by changing that. And silence is a great way to do that. Or that tempo piece is a great way to change that up a little bit. They lose their minds and they will be engaged. I mean, yes, you could go, I have a question. Do you guys think that's great? Here's a fun, weird trick with an audience. If you start clapping, an audience will always start clapping. It doesn't matter if it even makes sense. Like, hey, everybody, I just thought, and you're like, yeah, they're like, yeah, okay. In mob mentality, people are dumb. They're so dumb. That's what I'm saying. An audience is dumb as hell. And so it is manipulation and that ability to move them is a lot easier if you buy into it and you be a part of it. They want to be a part of it. Because again, you're on stage. They think you're important, even if you are actively not, which most of us are just not. But they don't know.
That's it's so good, Pat. So you guys can see why I like Pat Dwyer. I mean, I assume. So you talk about pattern disruption. All right. So let's
Yep.
just dig a little bit deeper in that. So you've talked about silence being a pattern disruptor. Maybe start clapping randomly.
Start clapping.
I assume
Yeah,
telling
don't
a
do that.
joke.
Don't just start clapping.
What are some other sort of just categories of pattern disruptors?
Sure. I mean, tone is a great thing. If your voice gets higher, voice gets lower. Um, Tempo, certainly, the more you can change your tempo. I mean, once you've established a pattern, if you change your tempo, the audience will come back to you. You can certainly point something out that's happening in the room. again, making them a part of it, that will change that patterning. Um, what another was another really good one.
Do you consider like singing or joke telling or any of that kind of stuff like a pattern disrupt, or
Yeah.
is that more something a
Yeah, I
different
mean, yeah,
way?
absolutely. I mean, people laugh for three big ways. The three big ways are relief. They laugh because of relief.
Hmm.
So, like, we laugh because something made sense to us, right? And so you're, oh my God, that's so funny. You laugh because of superiority, and that's inclusion or exclusion. So
Hmm.
superiority could be like, I'm laughing because I get the joke. Great, cool. So I'm going to laugh at that. Then you're also laughing because you don't get the joke, but you want to be part of it.
Hmm.
You're like, ha ha, that's so funny. Oh my God. Like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to laugh because everybody else is laughing. That's really what that is. And then the last one, of course, is just like benevolent violation, which is surprise. That's the one the babies do. So like
Hmm.
when that's the one that is rooted in all of us. Surprise is pattern disruption. That's if you look at a baby laughing, 9 times out of 10, they are laughing because something changed to what they're used to, and they think it's silly. So,
Hmm.
like if it's a squeak of a balloon, if it's a you're making a face at a baby and you're just going "Bleh," and like it's not something they're used to, so they're gonna laugh. And that's true. Humans, grown-up people, is the same stuff. It's the exact same stuff. They just don't get it. They don't know. So those are, and there are again, there's a lot of nuance to that. Those are the three big ones that we know from studies that have happened. Like those are the big three buckets,
I love it.
basically.
Let's talk a little bit about the blocking side of it. So I mean, you have so much experience, especially doing improv, where you're moving around stages is very natural, right? You're not a big a fan of like scripting all the blocking and that sort of thing because you just know, like if you're telling a story, you know to kind of direct it to the house or move. You just kind of you get it because of all your reps and your experience. But for those of us who are a little less experienced in that, who maybe are, we wander or we sway or we're told that we should move during a story, so we're very robotic and saying, "Oh, and now I'm over here." Those of us that are kind of newer to this whole blocking stage work, trying to have it be natural, but not so natural that it's disruptive to the audience because it doesn't
Yeah.
look like we're nowhere. Like, what tips do you have? Do you have any ideas? How do we start, moving, I'll say correctly, for lack of a better term, on stage?
Sure. So for those of you who have never done theater, the upstage is behind you and downstage is in front of you, down towards the audience, up away. So I like to think of my stage in six blocks. You've got three upstage and three downstage. And the more that you can stay in the center block, or at the very least, downstage towards your audience, the more uncomfortable they are and the more they will be engaged. It's not uncomfortable in a bad way, just like, oh, it's happening. I'm a part of it right now. So the more that you can be closer to the audience in general, the better you're going to do. And so I think there is a tendency for us to like drift away from our audience as we get nervous. And you can use that to your advantage because if you're telling a story where you want the audience to feel more disconnected from you, more uncomfortable, or more comfortable in it, but you are uncomfortable as a character, the story that you're telling, you can move up stage a little bit because that will embody that. But the mostly like I don't know, like 90% of your show, your program. I'm gonna say show a lot just because that's how I call all my programs. I just call them shows. So the closer you can be to the audience, like right on the lip of the stage, the better. Most times, almost. I mean, most times, it's like all the time. So yeah, try to get in their faces. I mean, not literally. Although some of y'all probably could do that. That'd be weird for all of us. But like, get right in their faces. Does that is that answer your
Yeah,
question, Steve? Is there?
no, that does help. That provides some context for sure. I'm thinking like I know for one of the things that I've struggled with for a long time, I'm getting better now with reps, and I think a lot of us do this is we kind of wander because we're trying to remember our lines, frankly, or
Yeah,
remember what we're going to say. So, we're in our head trying to think, okay, I'm saying this, but I know what do I need to say next? When do I need to click the slide? And so I think there's a lot of this, until we have all the reps, we're thinking so hard about what we're going to say. And I think our body just kind of moves randomly because that's just what we do when we're thinking. I don't know, I don't really know what the core driver of that is, but I've noticed that a lot when the more I'm not confident in what I'm going to say next, the more I wander around. And I think a lot of us have that sort of element to that. How do we overcome that, or how can we leverage that, I guess, into something that's actually, where the audience doesn't see that, I guess.
Yeah. So for me, the ways that I've dealt with that in the past is threefold. One, they don't know what's going to happen. So that gives me a lot of permission to screw it up as to what I thought was supposed to happen. Secondly, I am doing purposeful movement in my speeches, and I build it into, like, when do I click a slide? It's got to make sense to click that slide forward, right? But it also has to make sense as to why I'm doing something on stage, because this is a play. Like, we are doing theater as much as we think we're just delivering a speech. It's very much theater. So the other thing is just kind of like, how do I say this? Uh, Discovering who you are with the audience in that moment really helps, because they can engage in you a little bit more in that. So as we are moving around stage and finding the purpose and finding a reason, well, I'll say this too. There are people who say, like, they tell each story in different parts of the stage, and then they travel back through those stories at certain
Right.
points, because yeah, it helps the audience in a way, but it also very much, that's much more about the actor, like, trying to figure out what they're saying. But if you create a character of you on stage, like I do, for instance, like, I'm a different person on stage than I am off stage. if if that character exists, I can give that character permission to be something that I'm not. So for instance, I'm much more confident on stage than I am off stage, because that character lets me do that. Like, I can be that person on stage. And when things go wrong, I just can look at somebody and be like, yeah, you don't know. And then we just goof around a little bit together, and, like, we create that space. So for me, I am very much living in a character body when I'm on site. From the moment I leave my hotel room to the moment I get back, when it's a client facing thing, I'm a different person. When I'm on stage, moment I walk on stage, the moment I leave stage, it's a slightly different person. But this is also why I have this weird thing where I always have to get a room by myself. Like, at conferences, I'll like, for instance, Influence, the NSA conference that just happened. A lot of people share rooms. I don't. I need a place to disappear from the world for a while. Not that I'm not a true person with my friends, like, that's different. But there's still a matter of, like, I just need to decompress just because of what I'm used to at this point, because I need to not be that person for a little while. But that is also, again, it helped me get the permission to be the person I needed to be on stage in the improv world, to become the confident person that I did to get the audience to buy what I was selling.
So good. Well, normally we kind of take the first hour to do Q&A with me and stuff, but there's so many good questions popping up here in the chat. Let's turn it over sooner to all of you all to do that. I saw Karen has to leave. Karen, are you available for a second, or you have to leave now?
Yeah, hi, I'm back. My
Why don't,
client's doing great. So,
okay, good. Why don't you it was different from the track that we're on right now, but why don't you go ahead and ask your question in case we lose you
okay,
again about his pivotal moment.
perfect. Pat, thank you. This is
Yeah,
so awesome. I wanted to find out more about your journey, specifically related to the speaking career. Wondering if it built gradually through your experience, and or I'm going to guess that, but I am always curious if somebody, for that person that has that one pivotal client or pivotal phone call. And just curious how just some of your evolution would be awesome to hear.
sure. I've had a very weird journey in this whole thing, because I'm gonna say some bad stuff again, friends. I'm gonna say some bad stuff. So, having spent so much time in Chicago and on stage, and that's a very hard place to be. From a There are roughly 40,000 people in Chicago trying to do comedy and improv at any given time. I had one of 40 jobs in the city. Like, as fat, funny white guys go, like, the bell curve is massive. So, and I did pretty good for a fat, funny white guy. Like, Great, cool. So I was already like a kind of ahead of the curve in that world. But the way that the Chicago improv world works is that they consider themselves a training ground. And in that, they decide not to pay anybody very much because you're replaceable, and they know that, and they say that quite openly that you are replaceable. And so people have told me, when you leave this world, you're going to be bigger and better at this than you can imagine, because this world is such a weird microcosm of everybody hating themselves. So when I moved into the speaking world, the I moved up pretty quickly because people are purchasing content, but they are absolutely not doing that. They want the show. They want the experience. They want their people to be entertained at a pretty high level. So when I came in with a little bit of content at the time and a lot of personality, they were like, "Ah, this is so fun. We love this guy." The bar in this industry is abysmally low. It's so low. So I was given permission to do stuff that I probably wouldn't have gotten away with in a normal career, by just being more personable or more that guy, pretty early on. So there wasn't really, I don't think there was like a transformative moment. I mean, there's certainly always the next bigger gig that you're like, oh, cool, that's my fee now, I guess. Like, oh, I got 10K for an hour. These people are dumb as hell. I will take their money. And now that is my new level. Like, now I make $10,000 a speech. That's great. Oh, 20, you want to pay me $20,000? Yeah, that's great. That's my level. That's what I make now. Like, this is all just like a fake it till you make it, as far as I could tell. The National Speakers Association was immeasurable for me because this is a very, very lonely business. Yeah, it's beautiful that y'all have this cohort and y'all can like talk to each other and really boost each other up. When you are in an airport on day 4 and you're like, I can't look at another tourist, I'm gonna lose my mind. You call somebody and go, hey, I'm in an airport, and immediately they go, got it. How are you? What do you need? Because we've been there. And so for me, with the National Speakers Association specifically, the very first conference I went to was the Thrive conference, which is like the sales conference, because I knew from early on that I was going to be more entertaining. And that was because I took somebody's speaker school thing, and they spent 3 days on how to tell a story, and the fourth day on the business. And I was just destroying those rooms because I knew how to tell a story. Like that for me has been the easy part. Like that's how I found comedy in the first place. Is somebody told me like, hey, you're really good at like making people giggle. Maybe you should think about comedy. I was like, is that a job? I don't know. This was post college too. I just ended up kind of finding comedy because of that. But I found people on the National Speakers Association for me that were well above me in regards to their careers in the speaking world. But I knew pretty early on, like, oh, I can hang with these people because they're doing the same stuff I'm doing. I'm just not there yet because I don't have the volume yet. But I know from a talent perspective, like, we can hang, like that's easy. And then those people were extremely helpful in like pushing me forward. And for the first, I think 3 years I did this, like more than 50% of my business was referrals. So and like finding people who were like, oh, you're funny, you should do this gig I can't do, or like somebody who's making $20,000 a year usually, or $20,000 a speech will say like, oh, this one's beneath me. I'm like, I will happily take your scraps. Like I do not care. And even still, people are like, oh, do you have is fee integrity? How does fee integrity work? It's all bullshit. We make this stuff up. Nobody cares. It's not real. Like I take gigs that are like $3,000 all the damn time because it is money. I am still thinking to myself of like sitting eating mac and cheese, being like, this is my meal for the week. Like that's not a joke. That had happened many times. So like to now have a place where I'm like, you want to pay me how much for an hour? Yeah, okay, that sounds great. Like trying to think about like what people make, what normal people make in a week. I mean, like I'm gonna make that in an hour. This is the dumbest job I've ever had in my life. So for me has never been an actual moment. There's always like the next thing. Is that deeply detrimental to my mental health? Yeah, probably. I'm always driving forward, but it has really helped me work for that next thing and try for that next thing. But the thing that I've learned through improv and comedy and the comedy world, where everybody's always trying to get the next thing. Like the moment you got main stage at Second City, you're thinking, how am I going to get on SNL? Like that's not, I was never about that. I was only ever about the audience losing their minds. And so for me in this world, turns out that worked out quite well because now people are hiring me because I make people lose their minds. And then they're giving me, they're just like, it's becoming more frequent. And now my wife's happy with me, basically is how this works. Yeah.
Nice. Karen, that help you? That answer the question? Yeah, it's fun to hear his journey.
Thank you, Pat.
Sure.
So, and just to kind of piggyback on that too, like, after I left the corporate world, I spent 6, 7, 8 years scuffling, trying to figure out what I'm going to be because I decided I don't like math anymore. So that took away all the consulting I was doing. But, so I was doing everything, looking under every rock to do anything. So substitute teaching, delivering pizzas, whatever it had to do, just so I didn't have to have a real job, which just meant I worked, 100 hours a week and made less money. But so like right now, like if I get a gig, and I think I've mentioned this before, an offer for $1,000 or something, I put everything into the framework of how many hours of pizza delivery is that. It's 40 hours of pizza delivery to go do $1,000 event in my backyard. I'm like, I'm in. So not saying that's right or wrong, but for me that does help, and I think a lot of speakers are there too. Okay, Bonnie, then Karen, then Melody. If you don't want to come off mute, I can read your question, but if you're willing to, I'll just have you guys ask the question directly. Bonnie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I love your candor, and so thank you for bringing all this transparency and honesty. When you were mentioning the keys to humor, I'm an avid note taker, and you mentioned relief as
Yeah.
one of them. But I get it, I think conceptually, but I'd love to hear an example or two because I felt like you didn't get into that one quite as much. So
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, tell us more.
So relief is let's see, what's a great example? Relief is that moment where you thought something was going to happen and it did, so you're happy about it. Like for instance, if I was talking about building tension around the idea that I was going to fall into a lake, when that happened, you will go, ha, 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 yeah, he's in the lake, because that is a relief to that thing. It could also be, it's basically anytime the tension is broken that you've built, that is a relief laugh. That's what it is. A bit of surprise too. It's a bit of benevolent violation, but it's the long-term effect of that. The initial surprise creates that burst of laughter, and then the relief causes the extended laughter.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
All right, Karen, go ahead. You said you got a couple questions. Go ahead, rapid fire.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Pat.
Hi.
My first question was, do you ever leave the stage? Do you ever go down into the audience and walk around and, what's the timing on that? I mean, is there an appropriate time to do it, or is it just random? How do you stage that?
That's a great question. Yes, I do that sometimes. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things here. One, there's a power dynamic. You're on stage, they're not. If you go down to them, where does your power seed onto them? Things like that. Those are conversations you'll need to have with yourself in regards to leaving the stage. For me, I don't look at it necessarily in that way. I look at it as establishing those patterns for the audience. The first 5 minutes of my show, and honestly now with the YouTube, it's like 30 seconds, but we are generating and creating expectations for our audience to learn us and like us and to trust us. So for instance, if you are doing something in your program right at the beginning, they are going to need to see that again. They need to see it over and over again. So that they learn to trust you. So for instance, if I am on stage and I'm working from the stage, they understand that I'm kind of in charge in those moments, right? And then when I leave, if I were to start my show from off stage, there's a different dynamic there. They don't know. So I'm teaching them in my first 3 to 5 minutes, I'm teaching them how to laugh. I'm teaching them about my voice. I'm teaching them about how I talk. I'm teaching them about how I'm going to move and how I'm going to tell my story, so that they can feel comfort in that and also kind of tune in and tune out when I want. But also I'm establishing those patterns, so then when I break them later, they are more funny, but they're also more engaged consistently and repeatedly. So that's really where, I mean, I will say this, a week ago, wait, when was Influence? 2 weeks ago, I guess at this point, I did a program that everybody, it was like a 500 person like round table in a conference area. Everybody sat in the back except one dude who sat right in the front. And I was like a good 100 yards from everybody in the theater, in the like place. I literally was like, listen, I started on stage and was like, hey, I'm not gonna do this. This is dumb. And I walked off stage and walked right into the center of the audience. Like, we're doing this in the round. All y'all are back here. Hey, you guy, what's your name? And he's like, Bill. I'm like, Bill, come here, man. Sit over here because you're gonna be way over there and you're gonna not get a program at this point. But all these people are in the back. I'm gonna just go back there to them. And so, but I started on stage to establish that relationship so that then I could leave stage. And yeah, that happened much quicker in that spot. But I mean, even something as simple as like, where is your stage? Where does that, like, there's an exercise that I do where everybody's kind of ultimately the whole room is screaming at each other in like a really fun way, not like they're angry, screaming at each other in a fun way. And in that, I will always get on chairs and then be over them to process what's happening, because then that elevation becomes my stage.
Okay.
Instead of them all like standing and trying to find me in the group and things like that.
I would
So,
fall off I would fall off the chairs, but that's
I always use two because I, use one. And I'm a big dude. You can use two chairs.
Pat, we won't talk about
yeah, no, let's not talk about that.
Pat's fall.
My fault. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yes.
This is when I was emceeing and Steve was right after me, and I was emceeing and I busted my knee on stage and they had to call the paramedics and drag my butt off the stage. It was really fun. And Steve, being a close friend of mine, was not in the room. And he, about a week later, was like, wait, what happened? Where did you go?
All of a sudden I saw a picture of you like, yeah, why did you quit emceeing? What happened?
I thought you were in the room. Yeah. Karen, what else you got for us?
Okay, so my topics when I speak are a little I don't know, sad, difficult. Sometimes I talk about grief and I talk about addiction, and so when I'm doing that, it's hard to be funny.
Sure.
But I also feel like there's a need for that, and
Yep.
so I'm just curious what your thoughts are on how do you add a little levity into something like that. And the reason I'm asking this is because one of the programs that I did, I got my feedback, and only one person, but that one person always sticks out in your mind, right? Said, well, it was a good presentation, but it was a little light for the topic, and I was like, oh, okay. But so anyway, just curious, what do you think?
I know. I mean, it's hard to talk about understanding your program specifically.
Yeah.
I would say that people often think of comedians as having a different talent than actors, and I don't think that's true, because I think the difference between comedy and drama at its highest form is how high of a reaction you give. Like if you were to dial up to 10. So like for instance, a grief presentation might be at a 5. A comedy presentation saying the exact same stuff is at a 7. That's the difference. Like, so I think that there are opportunities likely that you could be funnier by just getting to the reaction faster, or doing the things that are safer in those moments so that people aren't offended. But human emotion is fairly linear. People get how they feel. I think for the most challenging times of getting people to cry or getting them to laugh, it's much more a matter of putting them in the story so that they can be a part of it. So I think of it like the difference between a book and a movie. Like, why do we like the book more than a movie normally?
There's no in we can create it in our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you get to put yourself in the story. So I
Right.
think of like the Hunger Games is a great example for me. Like which is, I think at this point, like a 40-year-old reference. Is that when the Hunger Games came out? Like 40 years ago, I think at this point. Anyway, so the Hunger Games, the book, they talk about a forest, and it's misty and it's cool, and they're walking through the forest. They never say exactly where it is. Like, that's part of the allure of the book. It could be anywhere. But then I grew up in New England, And so for me, my Misty Forest is different than somebody who grew up in California, right?
Hmm.
We would all have something that we can associate those words to. When I saw the movie, like first thing out of the movie, I was like, oh, that's like West Virginia. Now I'm out. This movie sucks. That's not true. I actually quite like that movie. My daughter is currently reading the Hunger Games books, which is also why it's on my mind. But the idea of me being a part of the story, I think from a comedic and dramatic perspective, if you can create a space where your audience can feel it, so you're not overly specific, but you are using words that help them put themselves in the story. So instead of saying it is this, you say it's like this. An audience will usually come to you a little bit more, and that can help the transition from drama into comedy.
So it's kind of like taking away from me to them, like keeping them involved. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
again, it's sometimes subtle, more subtle than that.
Mhm.
Again, it's hard for me to say without like actually looking at your story.
Sure.
Good
Thank you.
questions. Good questions, Karen. All right, Melody, we're going to save her question until if she can get back at the end. So Jen, why don't you go ahead and ask yours?
Thanks, Steve. And thank you, Pat, for being here and sharing more about your stagecraft. Much appreciated. So I'm someone who grew up obese, and so I don't bring attention to myself, and I don't like when people laugh at me when I'm on stage. So I don't do slapstick, I don't do physical humor, and I don't like to tell jokes. So what are some other, you mentioned a little bit just now, dialing up the temperature
Yeah.
of whatever it is you're evoking within your audience, but what are some other techniques or tools I can use to incorporate humor more gently? And for someone who maybe doesn't normally feel comfortable using humor, what could I use for that?
Um, that's a hard question because it's hard for me to give you a real answer without knowing how you do what you do. But I would guess in your real life, does anybody ever giggle with you?
A few times.
Great. A few times. It's like, no. And we just cry. We get near each other and cry. I mean, I think that the best way to bring humor for somebody who doesn't really love that stuff or who isn't really great at it is try to make your presentation that much more human. Make it that much more you, because then it's less a matter of what uh, uh, what you're creating and much more about like the story that you're telling. And I think that would bring an audience to you. It's the same, it's all the same stuff. I'm using humor, but if you are more Jen than and like create a space that's more like a dinner party and less like a speech, they will inevitably find you more engaging, find you more entertaining. I mean, I often say like create a space that's you have to make it your house. It's got to be your house. And if it is your house, you're inviting people into your house for that party or for whatever else. And that creates a space where they are just going to be more engaged and want to be with you a little bit more. Is that?
I love it. I love the dinner party idea. And for me, I think it's more anticipation that I build into my talk. So like maybe drawing out the moments more
Yeah.
and extending them in that anticipation.
Yeah. I mean, it always reminds me of that Rocky Horror Picture Show line where he's talking about the anticipation. Like half of y'all just looked up just because I like took an extra pause with it. Like, yeah, I mean, if you can build it up a little bit more, figure out. I mean, the other problem too is like the only problem I would suggest and the only warning I would give you in regards to like manufacturing anticipation is that it does break trust a little bit. So you do have to know how far you're pushing it so that they still trust you and want to be a part of your story. If you push it too far, they will turn on you pretty quickly.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that. All right, I'll dwell on that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's best of luck. No.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that about you, Jen, too, because you're such a, I mean, we spent some time together and I love your laugh and I know you love laughing and that sort of thing, but it does kind of call out for all of us. I mean, we're certain one way, in life, and sometimes some of that doesn't translate to on stage. Yeah.
Yeah, conversational style is very different from stage style,
Yeah, and maybe that's an insight too. I mean, would be potentially is there a way for you to make it more conversational? I haven't actually seen you do your whole keynote, but if you're more conversational on stage, then maybe some of the humor might feel more. I don't know. I think about my buddy Simon Anderson is on this call. He's he's muted there, but he's one of my speaking friends, and he told me early on when he gave me like feedback on my talk. He's like, "You sound like you're trying to teach us something." And I'm like, "I am." He said, "Well," he said, "Actually," he said, "treat it like you just went out and you went out with some friends and you learned something with your friends, and now you're coming back to another group of friends and just kind of sharing what you learned." And I think for me, that took a lot of that weight off of how I say things because then I could be more authentically me. Now I still struggle with some of that sometimes, but that helped me. So maybe Jen, I don't know if there's something there with if it felt more conversational, maybe you'd allow more humor to enter into it.
Well, I get to practice this weekend, so thank you both.
Oh, sweet. Well, let us know how it goes.
Okay.
All right, Sherry, you wanted to pop in here.
Okay, Pat, I have a question first before my actual question. So you have slides during your presentations, is that right? Or your programs or theater or whatever you said? Okay. So something for me, I have slides and I do my own presentations as well as I do training for other organizations that is their slides. And I really get really interactive with the audience and anything anyone says, I will always think of a story. It doesn't matter if you said you went to the park today, I got a story. And so sometimes I can get really into that. And it's like, and I appreciate that. And I really like that audience interaction. And I think when they're telling their own stories, then they learn from each other, yada, yada. But then I sometimes don't get through all the slides. It's not that big of a deal to me because I'll say, oh, well, this is in your handout and da, 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 da. And I will say, I really appreciate all the discussion. But I know there's probably one or two people in the room that are thinking, oh my God, this crazy lady didn't even get through the slides because she was talking so much. So does that ever happen to you? Because I'd rather have a discussion than me getting to all the slides. So
Sure.
thoughts on that?
Well, I think the discussion part makes you more of a facilitator and less of a keynote speaker. Although there's no rules to any of this crap, so maybe not. I don't know. So I make it seem as though I'm on tangents for that pattern disruption, even though I'm not, because I think that's the difference between a crisp presentation and one that I'm not actually in control of. I mean, I think one or two of those stories is fine. I mean, it's fine. It's not a big deal. But if you find yourself like losing time and not getting into the content, because ultimately they are paying you for the content. So, I think it's important to get through. If you have too many slides, that's a different problem. Um, I think it's important to try to like, well, okay, so I think this is, how do I say this? This is not about you, Sherry. This is the way that I look at it. I think there are two categories of speakers. There are speakers and there are thought leaders. And I'm going to say the thing that most people don't. Speakers are great. I love them. They're there for the audience. They're there to help the audience learn the information, move forward. It is about the audience. And a thought leader is about getting their rocks off, and it's about them speaking. It's not really about the audience and their transcendence. And I put those in those two categories because to me, it's similar to like standing at an art museum and there's a dude standing next to a painting. And he's like, I'm an artist. This is my art. You're like, you're not an artist, you're a painter. You can never be an artist because I, as the audience, have to make you an artist. I have to determine that to be art to make you that. Similarly, with thought leaders, like, I'm a thought leader. It's like, you're not a thought leader. You can't be. I have to think something to make you a thought leader. You can't claim that I call bullshit on you. And so for me, every time I meet somebody who's like, I'm a thought leader, I'm like, yeah, we're done here. I don't need to be your friend. Like, we're good. Because like that's not real. It's just not real. And so what I would suggest is if you're not getting to your content and you're going off on speaker mode or you're going off on speaker tangents, that becomes more that thought leader bucket than it does become the speaker bucket because I know that it feels like you're putting your audience first and you're engaging them, which you are, which is why it's important to do a couple of those. But if you're losing time and they haven't paid for what they're supposed to get, and that's a totally different problem. So I would encourage you to find one or two stories that you can do and that you know will come up. And I think it'll just come up with reps. I don't know your experience, but I would guess the more reps that you have, the more you'll find the stories that are going to come up. And then that becomes part of your keynote. Just make that your keynote versus like, oh yeah, that happened. That reminds me of this thing. Like, which is just like, that's a dinner conversation. That's not necessarily for the stage, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that?
And that, no, thank you. That's really helpful. And it's not that I, only get through a quarter of the content, right? I mean, I
Oh,
get
yeah.
through it. And it's more so if I'm training using somebody else's content that they've created. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is the most recent training I did, the audience was so interactive. And I do a good job of going over here and then coming back.
Mhm.
So I don't go totally like down the rabbit hole or whatever we want to call it. But so okay, the last one, people were really engaged. The one I did before that, same slides, and it was to a government it was to a government group, and they barely spoke. So it was almost like I could have gotten done early. So some of it just depends upon the audience, I think, for me. But so that in itself, it's helpful to know that you have slides, because sometimes I feel like, do those maybe almost hold me back in some ways?
Yeah, well, so I have never treated my slideshow like a slideshow. There are certain slides that have information on them, absolutely. But my slideshow is like another character on stage for me. So it's telling jokes that I'm not telling. It's saying things that I'm not saying. They're saying them in a way that I'm not saying it. Actually, Steve, here, I can show you actually real quick. Let me, can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, you should be able to, or do I need to give you permission?
No, I think you're good. I just have to make my windows work because otherwise y'all gonna see all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, show us your email list or something. Show us something really fun. Show us your recipe for dinner tonight.
Yeah, that's what it'll end up being, really. Let me see if I can, hold on a second. Share certain, here we go.
I remember my first time using Zoom, Pat.
Yeah. Shush. Okay. So, for instance, this is like an information slide for me, right? These are different kinds of jokes. Like if we needed to go through that, information slide, like here's all the data around, why it's fun to laugh and things like that. But then I've got things like this. This is talking about, if I were to talk about musicality, like that, I'm just saying about musicality, but this is a visual for the people who need that. Or like I talk about, we haven't talked about it yet, but the idea of like any program should be a snowball rolling down a hill. You should build it in a way that gets more, not frantic, but more energy towards the end of your speech. And then right before you're done, you walk off stage so that the audience goes, ah, yay. Because like the moment of relief is them cheering. Like that's how a good, but this is a image that describes that, or is doing something that I'm not doing. Right? Does that make sense, Sherry?
Yeah, that's helpful. And that makes me realize too, because when it's my own presentation, I primarily have pictures that I'll speak to. And I always
Yeah.
keep in mind, they don't know what I'm going to talk about. So they're not going to think, well, she didn't say, she didn't give 8 minutes worth of content about this picture, because they don't even know. Right. So,
Yeah, right.
okay,
Exactly.
that's helpful to know. Okay. Thank you. That's
But
super
also
helpful, Pat. Thanks.
if you have a slide too and there's not like any defining information on it, you can kind of move in and out of it any way you need to. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you guys like snowballs? Yeah, me too. Then you go to the next thing. Like, they don't need to know what, like I need to cut out 10 minutes of my show. So I'm gonna
Right. Okay.
there's one about snowballs. That's fun for all of us. Everybody likes a good snowball. And then I can change the storyline. They don't need to know.
Right. Okay. I think I am doing that to some degree. So I'll keep that in mind.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
You like snowballs. I'd say
Everybody
that.
likes a good snowball.
Random. So I've got more questions, but I mean, unless I missed somebody in the chat, does anybody else have questions? You go ahead and just unmute and ask if you have a question for Pat. There's that awkward silence we all hate, right? All right, so just put a note in the chat or just jump in if you want to ask a question. But Pat, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of in general, I guess, all of the talks that you've seen, all the coaching you've done. You got, obviously you've come up through the ranks, and a lot of us are trying to come up through the ranks. What in general, like what are some of the things that are kind of the biggest stepwise change from a stagecraft perspective that you see people make? In other words, like what separates the great from the good, or when you see people that sort of are floundering or just starting out and then all of a sudden they start getting traction and momentum, like what are they doing? Like what are some of the things that we can do that'll give us that stepwise change, or what's the low-hanging fruit for a lot of speakers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I know this answer. The well, I mean, I think one of the things that I've seen newer speakers do is they speak with their body closed. There's a comfortability to the stage. They speak as if the audience is doing you a favor. And I think that the moment that you can open your body and that stage becomes the place where you own and the audience is you're there at the pleasure of the audience, that's the moment where I think speakers become speakers from people who are giving a speech. Because it becomes more theatrical. It is a two-way conversation, but you know that they're there for purpose and that the purpose is you. I mean, that like weird, strange confidence, I think kind of does that.
That's
In
so
a
good.
way.
Like that's what I was going to ask you. Like, so I mean, because we can train ourselves to do that, right? We can rehearse and practice and do, but for that to become natural, I was going to ask, is it confidence or what's the internal work that needs to be done so that that comes out, I guess, naturally versus, okay, now I need to speak more open like this. I mean, what is
It's
it, confidence or what is it that we need to do?
I mean, I hate to tell y'all, it's just reps. You just got to do it a lot.
So it's
Like the more
comfort.
you're on stage, the more it becomes your house. Like that's all there is to it. Like I think that we all want the cheap way in. I think we all want the easy rule. We all want the trick to get us bigger, faster. But it's just reps. Like you just have to do reps. The more that you can do, the better you're gonna be. Like period.
But do you think
Uh,
there's a confidence element of that? Like, I mean, if we're it's either confidence in ourselves, confidence in our ability, or confidence in the content, or why do you think some people are able to be, I mean, and maybe it is just reps, but I feel like there's different speakers, some that have that maybe let's just say there's two speakers that have kind of done the same number of reps. I still feel like some are going to be more free and comfortable and open and wide and all that, and some are going to be more reserved and that sort of thing. And maybe it's just personality, but is there what do you think is the difference between those two, or what could be done if we're in that second camp?
Well, I mean, I think if you are looking at your program as an audience member, that's a quick way to engage your material in a way. Like if you're watching and you go, "Oh, I don't care to watch this anymore," you better know they sure as hell don't, because they don't even like you. So, they don't. Our job is to convince them to like us, then use that to exploit it over and over again. Like, if so, I mean, I think like the people who move up faster, just like they drink their own Kool-Aid better than anybody else. I
Hmm.
mean, I
Hmm.
know like from an improv perspective, there are everybody's roughly as talented as everybody else, especially in Chicago. But it's the people who really buy into it that and think that they know what they're talking about that are the ones that people believe. Like there are people who are actively funnier, actively better than other people, but they just don't have. I mean, they call it the it factor, but it's more just a matter of like buying it. Like you got to believe that you know what you're doing, and then the audience believes that you know what you're doing. Nobody actually knows what the hell they're doing. It's just pretending. So the more that you can just do it a lot, the more that they're like, oh, great, yeah, he knows. Like there's just everybody dumb as hell. They want everybody. I mean, I don't know what the political affiliations are in this room right now, but everybody wants a leader right now. Everybody needs one real hard. And sometimes we follow people who don't need to be led. And that happens because we desire as humans, we want leadership. We want somebody to tell us how to feel sometimes. And I think as a speaker, this is a microcosm of that environment. Like, but buy it, believe it, do it hard. And everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Like that's who we are as humans. We want to feel like we're listening to somebody who knows what they're doing.
So like, the way that I interpret that is if we're not confident that our message can impact the audience, it's not we're never going to get to that point where we can really own the stage.
Nope. Yeah, absolutely not. They don't, you can't own the stage without believing you belong there.
Hmm.
And even if you're faking it, and that's why I like the character method, because I'm a character who believes that they belong on that stage, so much so that you can't not believe it. And then it does bleed over into my real life too. I mean, again, I like to believe that I'm a very humble person. Like I like to believe that I don't drink my own Kool-Aid, but the person who performs has to be a different person for the sake of the audience. He just has to be.
That's
So,
super interesting. To me, that's super interesting about creating a character for yourself that is an onstage, confident onstage person until you catch up with that yourself. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, somebody early on in improv, I was like, how do you get big at this? And they were like, you fake it till you make it. And
Yeah.
it took me a real long time to understand what that actually meant.
And
And
that's
to
the
me,
hard, or go ahead. I'm sorry. No, you please
no,
go
it's
ahead. I'm
okay.
sorry.
Go ahead. You're right.
No, I was going to say that's the hard part. Like I totally interrupted you. I'm super sorry about that. But
Yeah,
the
well,
fake it till you
Steve,
make
I'm
it.
out. Forget it. We're done here.
Dang it, we just lost 42 minutes. But I think you hear, yeah, you hear about the fake it till you make it piece, and I get that piece, but then you hear about but authenticity. I mean, for ourselves, but also for our audience, people pick up on if you're not being fully authentic, and I guess we're not all world class, Second City, actors, and so I think that can be a piece where I think can be tough for some of us, where it's like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to act confident and be confident, but maybe I'm really not. I'm not there yet, but I need to act that. But yet my audience wants authenticity. And I feel like if I'm acting confident when really I'm just a guy trying to figure it out on my own, sharing what I've learned, how is there a way to reconcile those, or how would you frame that?
I mean, I have a couple different mantra before I walk on stage, but for the most part, if the audience doesn't know who they're supposed to see, and they don't, similar, they don't know what the content is, they don't know who you are
Hmm.
at all. So for me, one of the things I do is like I when I was doing comedy sports, I would host the shows a lot, but I'd be like, okay, we're talking, and I'm talking, and I keep talking. Oh my God, I'm still talking. And the audience would watch that devolve. And I would have a buddy of mine who would just like, I don't know where he came from, but he'd always be like in the show with me, and he'd be like, breathe. And
Hmm.
then I just go, and then I could be the person that I was supposed to be again. So now I have this tattoo on my arm. I call him the Peaky Tiki because I roll my sleeves up and he's like, just I see a little bit of his face. But for me, I needed something to ground myself before being the person that I felt like I wanted to be. And so I'll stand backstage right before I walk on almost every program and I'll go, you got this, right? And he goes, yep. And then we get on stage. And that's kind of I just like I hold my arm and I go, got it? I go, yeah, come on, Peaky Tiki, let's do this. And then we get to be that person we need to be, me and the Peaky Tiki. And like for me, that worked out. I mean, it was when I was trying to convince my wife that I should get a tattoo. She was like, why do you want that? I'm like, that's fair. That's a fair question. Uh,
That's the right question.
I think it will help. And so, sure enough, it was just something that for me helped me feel a little bit more confident in that character that I didn't always feel confident in and don't always feel confident in. I mean, gosh, if I have 3 shows in a row that are not great, I'm like, come on, Peaky Tiki, let's go. He doesn't believe
Well,
in me either.
I'm
So,
incredibly grateful that you shared just that right now too, that vulnerable, transparent, that sort of stuff. Because what I know of you and what I've seen of you is just like you're just came out of the womb confident. Like I mean, there's some people that just feel like that, and you feel like that's unattainable for some of us. So I mean, I appreciate you sharing that even you with all the experience and all the stage presence, sometimes need that bolster. So I appreciate that.
sure. I mean, and there are swaths of months that I would do really bad shows in a row. And then I would go, okay, how do I recenter myself? How do I reground myself? And for me, it was always going back into I would always take meticulous notes doing improv. Like at the beginning, when they're teaching you how to do improv, I have notebooks of notes. And I would always find the one notebook from the very first class I took, and I'd read the literal basics of improv and then go, yeah, that's right. I need to do
Mm.
those things. That's how to do this. And then I'd rediscover my confidence. From a speaking perspective, I mean, when I busted my leg in the show that Steve and I did a year ago, or last December? That's when that was.
Yeah, October, November, December, somewhere in there. Yeah.
So I was in a chair. I see a chair. Like I was in an armchair for 5 months. Like I couldn't move because I busted my leg so badly that if I moved, it would snap again. So even my PT was like, "What'd you do this week?" I'm like, "I sat." And I'm like, "Good, you did the right thing." I'm like, "This is the dumbest PT. Why am I paying? This sucks." But when I originally got back on stage, and even for me, I have a belief that you can connect with anybody anywhere as long as you are here, listen to them.
Mm.
And so for me, if it's like calling somebody in customer service or like even being in like a Starbucks or something, like I'll go, "How are you?" Yeah, but how are you? And I pause and sit in it and just let it genuinely want to know. And that genuine want to know creates a shared experience, creates a place where we're friends all of a sudden. And so for me, I finally got out of the chair. I was using my crutches. I went into a mall. And this is, I think ultimately this is much more a product of like just generational misunderstanding. But there was a woman who was, I want to say she was like maybe 15 or 16. And we were at a Haagen-Dazs. There's a Haagen-Dazs booth at the mall. It was, I mean, guys, Haagen-Dazs, let's talk about it, right? So we were at the Haagen-Dazs booth. My kid was like, I want some ice cream. And I said to the person like, hey, how's your day? And she was like, I don't know, it's fine. I was like, oh, okay. Like I'm used to somebody giving me at least a little something back, and was like, I mean, are you been in the shift long? Like, are you almost done? Or are you just starting? She was like, oh, I just started. I was like, oh, cool. So there's a lot more time for it to go wrong, right? She goes, sir, that is not appropriate. And she just like walked away. And I was like, what the fuck oh, I'm sorry. What the heck just happened? Like, I, I like was in my head all day to the point where my wife and kids were like, let it go. I'm like, I don't understand what happened. Like, I don't know. The magic skill that I had of connecting is just gone. I don't know. And I was just so out of practice of being with people that I was using the mechanism instead of genuinely listening and genuinely being with someone in those moments. And then once I realized that, I went, okay, cool, I can do this again. That's fine. I remember now. So similarly with an audience, when I was like doing shows again for the first time, I'm like gimping around on stage, trying to connect with an audience, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. It was because I was going through the mechanics, but I wasn't actually part of it. And I wasn't letting myself be a part of it because I wasn't there yet. And now that I've back to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's how we do this. That's right. Yeah, I had to do like 6 bad shows. They still paid me. They don't know. But I had to do 6 what I would classify as bad shows. Also, my level of bad show is still for them, it's a really good show. They're happy. But like, it wasn't where I knew it could be. Once I remembered how to do that, now it's coming back to me a little bit. But that confidence piece is, I mean, good God, I was like, I'm not a confident. I was never really a super confident person. Again, that's what I mean. Like we're all broken. It's like how our broken works in favor of corporate. Because like I'm bad at stuff. Like I know that. So like, how do I not let them see that? I guess is the best way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my wife when we were married in college, and she worked at places like Haagen-Dazs and Mrs. Fields Cookies, which might explain a few things about me. But gotta love the Haagen-Dazs. So Melody, now that you're back, I'm going to have you ask your question, and then Elizabeth will turn it over to you for your question.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Glad I got back. Thank you so much, Pat, first of all, for being here. Really appreciate it. My question is, as someone who's not necessarily, I mean, my friends think I'm funny, but am I on stage funny? So I don't feel like I'm inherently funny. And then I speak about things like caregiving, self-care, resilience. So some of the time I talk about, being a recovering people pleaser and how like I'm trying to be all things to all people. So I can throw little pieces of humor, but I have my first keynote coming up in October, and I want it to be, I know, right? Exciting. Aging with intention is the topic. So, but I want to be funny, but I don't want to be like ageist. So I don't want to make just jokes about aging in general. I'm just trying to figure out like how do I fit humor into that? And after influencer, like every 5 to 6 minutes, there should be something. There's a laugh. I'm like, oh crap! Like I'm lucky if I can figure out 2 places to laugh. How can I get 6 or 8? So that's my question.
So 6 or 8 will come in time. Don't worry about it. You'll discover moments where you go, oh, that's fun. I should write that down, and that'll happen. I think the best way to be funny without like knowing what you're doing is to just like rest on the walls of structure. If you can create a space that will create tension and not knowing the answer and then deliver the answer, that will inevitably be funny. Just kind of is. I mean, it will create little spaces where it's different kind of creating tension and then releasing that tension for those to get up to that, 20 laughs a minute or whatever it is. I don't know. But also here's the thing. Okay, listen, friends, influence is just a mess and speakers, we're all like, everybody's going to tell you their way is the right way to do it. It's dumb. It's dumb. That's not right. It's just a way. It's not, everybody's like, this is exactly how you do that. It's like, that's wrong. That's your way to do it. I mean, it's going to be my way. So give yourself permission to not do what everybody else does. It doesn't make sense. Or even if it does make sense, try it. And if it's not working in that way, it just doesn't. Like that's okay too. In regards to like being funny and fun, I mean, I think like anytime that you have a joke that could also be a personal attack, it's just not going to be funny. So like if it comes down to ageism or things like that, if you're asking, is that ageist? It is. That is. It just is. It's like if people are like, any kind of racist joke, which I'm not going to say any racist jokes. I just want to put that out. But not that I would need to point that out. I'm not going to tell a racist joke. Why do I even know racist? Okay, I'm going to go. Never mind. So if we are questioning that ourselves and we already know what we're delivering and we have a higher understanding of what an audience experience is, if you're wondering if it is funny, it might be. If you're wondering if it is ageist, it definitely is. If you hit the same kind of thing over and over again so that it feels like an attack or could be misconstrued as an attack, it is. It already is. You've already done that. So try to figure out ways to create tension and break it, but also change the musicality and the pacing of what you're doing to bring the audience towards you, and they will just laugh as natural in general. But it could also be like, it's like how we tell our stories. 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with people from a coaching perspective, it is much, much more about structure. It's much more about like this needs to lead to that, which will be funny, less than I can write you a joke. Like I don't do that stuff anyways.
Okay.
Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I should be less concerned about being a stand-up comedian, more concerned about getting my message across, which is we all
Well,
get to shape the way the rest of our lives look if we choose to.
that's fair. Well, but I mean, also you're inherently a personable person because you're in this business. You wouldn't be. I mean, this is the number one fear of people. This, sharks, having children are all very scary to people. So, like, if public speaking is that fear and you're already on stage doing it, you're already leaps and bounds ahead of where other people are going to be.
Okay.
So just be you harder or be you as much as you can in the
Okay.
meantime. And they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And then they will inevitably just laugh because they're excited to be in your party.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Yeah.
kind of a quick piggyback follow up on that too, Melody, because that's something that I struggle with too, like a little bit is how do I interject humor? And that's where I'm using Pat for some of this too, because I don't see it. Like, okay, these are interesting stories, but like, where could I put humor in? And maybe for you, if there's a few people that you could just say, hey, I'm going to present my talk to you, and maybe just with a specific instruction to, can you just look, don't worry about the content, but think about, are there places where maybe there's a little spot where something funny could be interjected or something. I don't know, but because I think some of us have a hard time identifying that. And Pat talked about structure being the driving force. I know Jen is also a speaker coach, and I'm sure she could help with that kind of stuff. So, or just friends that you have to be able to say, all right, just look for this. And Pat, I don't know if that's good advice or not, but maybe it's a bigger question around getting feedback and being comfortable getting feedback from other people. It's a stumbling block for all of us because I hate seeing my own face. I hate hearing my own voice, much less presenting it to my friends and my acquaintances. I'd rather do it for strangers. But boy, the feedback you get from people that are willing to do that for you can be huge.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing that I start with whenever I'm coaching is always send me your whole stuff. Send me everything you got, and I will watch it. Steve, no, you're all right, man. Send me what you have. Let me watch it, and let's just do notes on that as it stands. And inevitably, the people I mean, I guess the problem with the people is they might try to get you to do the thing that they think you are versus the thing that you're actually doing. But there's inevitably something in there that you can't see because you're just too close to it. I mean, like the stuff that Steve and I are working on specifically is like he's told me stories and I go, oh, what's really funny about that? And he goes, oh yeah, that is funny. And then we just kind of like create that idea, you
True.
know? So I mean, it's in some respects a bit of a low-hanging fruit in that way, but there's more to it certainly. But like that's always the best place to start is just like, I mean, if you can have enough confidence to just send it to people, great, do it. But that's
Okay.
the best place to start is like look at the whole thing holistically, see what do you see that I don't see?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah. So I jokingly said, how's your day, Pat? So I
Yeah,
just love that idea. Um,
doing all right, I guess. I know it's fine.
so I loved your oh, it's all right, I guess. Yeah, well, there's lots of we've got almost a half hour left for this to go completely to hell. So
I mean, there's a hope in, yeah, yeah.
um, so I loved your snowball slide and suspect I'd love, probably learning other stuff from you, but I was wondering if you'd be game to give some examples of, just building that snowball effect. I like that idea.
Yeah, so I thought it was so this that concept started when I was doing sketch comedy, and we would write anywhere between like a minute and a half scene to a 5 minute scene, something like that. And from a structure perspective, you got to put the stuff up front that is more grounded, more realistic. From a sketch, this is just a sketch comedy show. So you put the stuff that's more realistic and more grounded up front. Like if it's a scene about two guys trying to figure out how to be a dad, like that would be at the beginning of the show. Then in the middle of the show, you're a little bit more goofy and playful. But by the end of the show, I'm playing a squirrel that's asking somebody for candy. Like that's not, you can't start with that because that's not, the audience doesn't know to trust you so that you can get away with that craziness later. Similarly, from a presentation, we would need to create a space that they understand the grounding of the information before you introduce the concept, and then you show them how they can use it in a way that blows their minds. Because if you start with blow their mind, they don't know what's blow their mind, but also they don't trust you enough to believe that you know what the heck you're talking about. So that is part of the snowball. The other part of the snowball is just I mean, I'm going to use the word frantic, but it's not quite that large of a term. So it's your energy level needs to crescendo as you're doing your show, as you're doing the presentation. I mean, it's sort of similar to actually here, I've got a slide for this. One second. Here you go. Share my slide. Okay, so this is like a traditional way that a story is told, right? This is in Western culture. They're very different, but in Western culture, this is how we tell a story. There's exposition, inciting action, right? It gets to the climax, and then the denouement is the run out of what that is. Usually for speaking, we want to stop right after the climax happens so that the audience is like, oh my God, that's great. And then the end for them is applying it to their own lives. Similarly, these different storylines, these are the big five for how oh no, I'm sorry, big four, with how a storyline in Western culture goes. And again, it's very different, but Boy Meets Girl and Cinderella are kind of the ones that we know fairly well, but they're not the ones that engage us often. The one that we use the most is that green line. And that's the traditional Cinderella story. She learns stuff, things get worse for her. Then the fairy godmother comes and she gets that's where it leaps forward. So the fairy godmother comes, she gets to go to the ball. Oh my God, the ball. And then midnight happens and she drops in back to where she started. And then the climb out of the hole is really where she's like, that's where we start to feel for a character. This is like, I mean, this is Rodgers and Hammerstein. This is the Brothers Grimm. This is Hans Christian Andersen. Like these are the story structures that we know because of that. Oh, Man in a Hole is more just like John Wick, which we see a lot in like Asian cinema. A lot of like kind of like this bad thing happened. Now this person's gonna make their way out of that. Like that's where we see a lot of that. We started to see it a little bit in American cinema too, but not as frequently. But then like, this is different than like stories you hear in like French cinema is a great example, right? Everyone is dead, and that's the end of the story. Like you're like, cool. Where do we go from here? Like those are the big ways that the story works. And knowing that, you can create that snowball of energy and frantic like excitement and like, oh my God, if we know this, then we totally know that. And if we know that, oh my God, we know this too. And like that excitement, that evolution of the message is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a snowball, and how to manufacture that so that you can create a space where the audience comes with you on an emotional journey that you have created. And that's where this becomes theater, is that we're generating an emotional journey for our audience.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome. That took 2 minutes. We have 12 more to go.
Heather, I've got more. I always have more questions, like I said, but I want to make sure I give a pause here. Any questions, any follow-ups, any comments from the crew? Ann? Ann, and then who else raised their hand? Just with Maddie. I'll go Ann and then Maddie. Oh, we can't hear you, Ann. It's not showing you as muted, but we can't hear you. All right, well, Maddie, why don't we take your question, then we'll come back to Ann.
Sure.
Ann's gonna write it out on paper and just hold it up. It's gonna be like, oh,
You-
got it. Okay,
You lost your chance, Ann. That's it.
yep, you're off the island. Put
One
on
and
your
done.
cheek.
Yep.
Yep.
So I love your energy. I just imagine when you pop on a stage, you know how you have well, usually when I step on a stage, I'm behind the screen, I'm getting mic'd and everything else, and I pop up.
Yeah.
I choose my music carefully. Do you have any recommendations for music choices or how to get that energy going while you're backstage?
When I'm backstage, I so that's been an evolution. Years ago, when I would do improv, I'd always just do push-ups right before I walk on stage, just because I'm always like, I'm here. That's different for a keynote, because if you do that, the audience is like, why is this happening? For me, I usually start the I mean, 80% of the time I'm starting like the whole conference off because they want that energy burst and they want that connection for their audience. And I create a lot of places where they like bond together. So then they can take it forward. This is my line. Then you can take it forward into your conference. Give me all your money. I say the last part first, usually. It doesn't matter. From a explosion onto stage perspective, um, I mean, it's such a personal story. I don't know. It's such a personal determination as to what you can get away with. I am a big Band-Aid rip fan. Like I come right on stage, I'm like, yeah, what's up, everybody? How you doing? And like they know from the moment I walk on stage what that's gonna be and what it's gonna be moving forward because I'm not gonna slow down. And I up at the very programs and I like have them shake out and like I have them do what I call the boom boom claps, but it's we will rock you because I'm trying to create community from the beginning. And if I do that, then they're going to trust me more. And also I process right after I do it, I go, I don't know why y'all did that. You don't know me, nor should you. It's weird for you. And if you were at my house all the time, that'd be weird for you too. After that, I've built trust. I've created a space where they want to be in the party that it's like, for me, it's like opening a door to a birthday party and being like, whoa, this is a cool party. Like you want to walk in and be like, whoa, neat. Like that's what I'm doing at the beginning of my program. That is not something most people can do. We had a thing in Chicago that we called Big Room Funny. Big Room Funny is what we referred to as if you're on stage with 8 people, and this is just kind of just how it is. It's unfortunate for those of us who want to do this work and are just not going to be at that level. But there are people who you walk into a room, if there's 8 people on stage, you go, that one, that's the one I want to watch. I don't know why. They haven't said anything. That's the one I want to watch. I get that a lot. Like I get a lot of like, oh, I just wanted to see what you were gonna do. Like, yep, I know that that's the case. Like that, I can get away with that. But also from a big room funny perspective, I was always playing to the whole audience. I wasn't only playing to one or two individuals. And it created a space where the audience just wanted to be a part of what I was doing. So big room funny in this environment is if you have 7 speakers on the stage, there's one that and this is a different problem because speakers in general, everybody wants to be with speakers. Like that's the idea. Like we have to be the people that audiences want to be with, or you're going to do fine in this business. You're just not going to do amazing. So like, I think that like for me to be the person that the audience can't blink on because they're not sure where it's going to go next is a really exciting, fun thing for me. I mean, from a walk-up music perspective or whatever else, I mean, I think your intro, your walk-up music, everything. From the moment that they know of you is the moment your show starts. So is your music building on what you've done? Is your intro building on the person you have to be? Like my intro, I wrote for a long time when I first started, I was just writing about comedy. And then I would start to talk about, like, in your corporate structure, you could do this, or your corporate offices, you could do this. And everyone's like, what does that comedian know about any of this crap? So I started to put in like some of my experience in corporate at startups. Like I worked at Group, I was one of the first people to work at Groupon. And so y'all remember Groupon, that coupon company that was always a coupon company, but nobody figured it out. Yeah. I added that stuff in because I was realizing that from my storyline on stage, they weren't buying into it as easily as they needed to. So if I introduced something as a drip early, when I got there, it was already paid off. So from even a structure perspective, if we know things have to come in threes anyways, what I do for construction is I always do from back forwards, because if I know where things are going to pay off, we can start creating spaces early on that the audience gets inkling of something that's going to happen later. So then when they get there, they don't know why they feel comfortable in it, but they do. Like if I know later I'm going to talk about the rain, early on, if I say something about puddles, like, oh my God, puddles. This is a really bad example. I've never done this before. I'm just saying, like, if I'm talking about puddles, then when I get to rain, they'll go, oh, I already know about puddles. I thought about it. And then they're like, oh, we're part of this thing, right? So, similarly, I think with music, like, who are you gonna be when you bust onto stage? Like, I always have, when I was in Chicago, there was a show that I did most, called Comedy Sports, and for part of it, they go, "Ladies and gentlemen, Pat Dwyer," and like I would bust through a door and be like, "Yeah, yeah," and that walk-up music stuff was always a big deal because I was priming what they were gonna be, and like there's music that crescendos and then goes and like that moment would be the moment I wanted to bust through the door because it's that crescendo is already built in. I actually have a playlist that I love. Oh, friends, it's such a good time. I have a playlist for my airport called the Walking Through the Airport playlist, and it's just music that I know I can like jam out to while I'm walking. But I also have one called the Takeoff playlist. And this is a game that I've run with a couple of my friends where when you leave the gate, you push play on the playlist, and then there's always one song that like crescendos right as you take off. Want to be starting something by Michael Jackson? If you're at a big enough airport, right when it goes "Mama say Mama sa Mama kusa," you're like accelerating to take off. It's like the best damn thing I've ever done in my life. I'm like, yeah, we're flying. Like it's so much fun. So there are songs that I put on that playlist. I'm like, oh, this is a great crescendo into that moment. But I also have similarly, I have a playlist of like walk-on music that I know where it comes, that there's going to be that explosive moment of music that I'm like, cool, this is on brand for me. This is message for me. Like the lyrics are good message for me. But it's also like that explosive moment where I can be like, if I needed to walk on stage right now, here, that's where it comes. And like I would just tell the tech team, like, we gotta wait, and then this is when you bring the lights up. So I don't know if all that.
Maddie, does that help, or any follow-up question with that?
Yeah, no, that helps. I think you should share your playlist with us. That would be fantastic.
It's very personal. I don't know, maybe I don't know.
Careful what you wish for, Maddie.
Yeah, no, you don't want to love it.
No,
Yeah,
that was excellent.
There's just one that's going, here you go, here. Actually, I will say my son is 8, and he recently discovered a song that the lyrics are, I know a weenie man, he owns a weenie stand. I want to be his weenie wife, 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 wife. And then it just keeps, and I'm like, what song is this? And it talks about hot dogs. Like it's like a 4-minute song about this guy singing about this hot dog stand. And it's a great song in the way that like I never want to hear it again. But it's on that playlist because it reminds me of my son. I can't share that with you. You don't want that. It don't make any sense. Yeah.
So funny. And Jen added the crescendo must be within the first 20 seconds for the walk up too. All right, we'll do Anne and then Melody.
Yeah, I just was listening to you earlier and I was hearing people kind of say they feel nervous about injecting humor. And I think we don't always have to be the one that's the joke, that's bringing the joke. I think using the audience and playing off of some of the audience. And so I wonder if you could just talk to like how to really use improv, like be intentional in improv. I know I ask questions in the beginning. I talk about workplace culture. And I'll be like, tell me your least favorite attribute of employees. And they'll be like, tardy and, sassy, disengaged. And then later I'll be like, now remember, Pat doesn't like anybody who's disengaged because you can pull from what the audience is doing. I don't know if there's a way that you do that you can talk about, but I find that's what gets relatable and that's what keeps everybody listening because they're like, uh-oh, I gave an answer and is Anne gonna pull me back in later in a good way, not in a negative. Is there anything you do special with that?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't often think about that. I do it quite a lot, but I never think about it because I've just been doing it so long that it's like improv in general is a muscle. The more that you work on improv and reacting in real time, the easier it's going to get. You get stronger at it, right? Like the more you're lifting weights, the stronger you're going to get. So now for me, like things like that will happen all the time, and I totally don't realize that they're happening. And so, like for instance, if there is a person, I think um, not letting genuine moments go, letting them happen, and then calling them back over and over again. Well, certainly, yeah, you're right. It's going to be funny every time. I mean, you can. One of the things I do not suggest that you do this. It's very difficult to do well. But if there's somebody in the front row or something that's like not cheering, you'd be like, yeah, cool. Okay, not that guy. That guy didn't know. Like, okay, here's a good example. What I was working for the Wisconsin pipe layer government pipe layers association or something, like I don't know what it was, but it was like all these like big burly scary dudes who I was supposed to teach improv to. Like this was a long time ago, but there was one guy in the front row who was like the scariest, beefiest, biggest dude. And part of me was like in my brain, like I guess if you punch the big guy in the yard, then you're more in control. So the biggest dude in the room, I was like, yeah, that guy knows. I mean, he likes everything. He likes the Backstreet Boys. And then I don't know why I said that. It just happened. But every time I came back to stuff, I'd be like, yeah, we know. That guy knows. He likes the Backstreet Boys. And then I kept bringing him into the show and made him another character in the show, which was a moment that just kind of got away from me, but I used it. And then I found out about a year later, they called me and they were like, yeah, for the Christmas party, everybody gave that guy Backstreet Boy stuff. He was really mad about it. I'm like, that's the best. That's the best thing I could ever. That's great. And so this one big burly dude in the middle of Wisconsin's walking around on job sites with Backstreet Boys t-shirts now, which is freaking hysterical. So
I
like,
love that.
taking those genuine moments, but remembering them and then using them strategically is certainly a great way to bring comedy without you having to like manufacture it. You just know that you can use it. If there is a big moment, do not ignore it. Like there makes no sense. Like if something happens, you need to call it out. Like if a light falls down, you have to say something about that for it to be real, for it to be live theater, and for it to exist in the real moment. If you try to keep doing your presentation, that's just going to get distracting. I mean, there was a while where like if somebody has a phone that goes off in the middle of the show, you'd be like, cool, come here, can I borrow your phone real quick? And then you talk to that person. I mean, yeah, it's different with business conferences because like that could be important. But like, hey, I'm like, we're doing a show. How are you? What are you doing? You want to hang out later? And like, something fun like that so that it's known, it is recognized. Yeah, Anne, I think your technique's great. That's awesome. That's good that you bring that stuff up over and over again.
And
But
does the
again,
answer,
so,
yeah. Or go ahead.
just know with callbacks, if you do them too much, they're not funny again. So it's like you got 3 rules. So like you can do it once, you can do it twice, then it's funny. If you do it a 4th time, you pretty much have to go back around until you get to 7 or 8. Because then it'll not be funny, and then it'll be real funny again. It's sort of like those, Andy Kaufman's a great example. Like Andy Kaufman did all sorts of stuff that is actively not funny, but because he sat in it for so long, it became funny again. It's similar with callbacks. If you do it twice, you better do it a third, and then if you do it 4, you got to invest in like 9 times. It's just kind of how it is. And it will actively not be funny. They will hate you for it in the middle, but then they will love you for it because you didn't give up.
And does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Just a quick comment for Melody's question. Like, yeah, I was doing an event in Duluth, Minnesota, and there's like a ore ship going by, and it kept honking its horn. And I was watching another speaker, and he wasn't addressing it. I'm like, there's so many fun things you could do, but like, I think just we were all uncomfortable because it kept interrupting his talk. I'm like, just at least address it. We all know what's going on, and it was just kind of uncomfortable by not addressing it, frankly. Yeah.
It's sort of like when things like that happen, it's like the lights going out in the room. Like I have
Yeah.
done speeches where we have all held up our camera phone lights.
Sweet.
Like, because you just like the lights go out. What are you going to do? I'm not going to stand there. Let's do something. Let's
Yeah.
create this. Or like if the sound, if my slideshow, this is the nice thing about being an improviser and having done this for a while. My slides go down. I kind of still know what I'm talking about, but I can just do improv games. Like there's nothing that's going to throw me into not delivering. It won't be what they wanted, but so what? They pay me to come back. Like that's fine. I'll
Right.
take the money. Um,
So we're getting close to time. Melanie, why don't you go ahead and get your question in?
Yeah, one other question, just in terms of like the whole stage piece is going to be new to me. I've done more virtual and workshops, but to actually keynote. So my question is, so I finished speaking, but then I'm also doing a 90-minute workshop or a deep dive after we're done. So how do I segue from like I'm the keynote, I'm doing Q&A, then all of a sudden I become the other person. I don't really know. So how do you manage that just with physicality of that? And do I need backup music?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think if you think of the whole day as the show instead of the one moment where you're doing one thing or another, I think it is hard from a I'll say this. I hate ending shows in Q&As. I hate that because there's no crescendo to it. Like you can't control the explosive energy to that. Like that's not fun to me. Like I will ask questions through, if you want to do it in the middle, well, we'll do Q&A in the middle. I don't care.
Oh, that's a
Or
good point.
like, I need to be back in control of the show. But like for instance, when I was doing improv stuff, I would do like 50% keynote and then improv things, but then right at the end, I go, cool, cool, cool. Everybody go sit down, great. And then I would take back over to create a ramp up of energy right before the end. If you look at the whole day as a show, how are you creating the storyline of your whole day? And even if they're not all going to be at the breakout, you can say early on, like, we're going to do some of this in the deep dive later, or we're going to do this in the breakout later, or we're going to talk more about that, but that'll come. And then you're dripping little ideas through
Okay.
something. Sort of like if you have a consulting business and you're a speaker, you occasionally will say like, "Oh, this client I work for, blah blah blah," and they go, "Oh, he does that too." Like, "Oh, what fun!" Because again, people are dumb as hell and they don't know what you're doing. Think about I would say the only thing I could say is like think about the whole day, think about what you're creating, what the structure is, think about how you're bringing them to that next crescendo moment, and that will answer a lot of that
Okay.
question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've just got a couple minutes left. Any last minute questions from the group at all? Otherwise, I got one more I can end with too, Pat. But before I do, I did put your LinkedIn and I put your website in the
Okay.
chat, and I'll add them to the master document. Is there another way or a preferred way that you'd rather have people connect, or is there other social media platforms that you think would be good for people that are interested in this to follow?
No, I'm really, really bad at social media. I'm really bad at LinkedIn for that matter. I'm
Yeah.
working on it, gang. I'm working on it. Give me a break. I mean, Instagram is where I put a lot of the stupid stuff, and that's just I know Pat Dwyer. Because now you do, basically. I know Pat Dwyer is on my handle for pretty much everything. LinkedIn is coming soon. I don't really do very much on LinkedIn. The Yeah, Pat at Pat Dwyer was taken is my email. Feel free to write me anytime you want. I will answer anything. The comedy intensive certainly is something to think about. I don't know, it's pretty fun. We have a good time. And plus you get to meet the speakers at a lot of different levels, which is really fun too. And we do some live coaching in it too, so you actually get to see a lot of this stuff in action. But if y'all want to just talk about your stuff, let me know. Yeah, I'm
That's
here
awesome.
to help in any way that I can.
Well, this has been great. I want to end with just the question that I had is like basically, how do we get better? So I know we don't have time to go in depth, but I mean, we've talked a bit throughout the whole time of, reps, just doing reps. There's coaching, there's the structure, there's self-evaluation, there's peer evaluation. But like for those of us who are kind of saying, all right, I'm buying into all this stuff. I just want to get a little bit better. What are some of the other methods that you've seen that maybe are just ideas that we could take with us?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of pay to play in general. Like I think environments like this are fantastic because y'all are helping each other out. there will be a lot of people who are going to try to sell you shit. Don't buy any. Don't buy it. It doesn't make sense. Because the more that you do it, the more that you're gonna get better at it anyways. I mean, yeah, things will accelerate. Like if you have somebody who knows what they're doing and they can help you individually, great. But they're gonna try. I mean, I think the thing that somebody told me, which turns out to be very true, is that whatever any other speaker tells you is happening in their lives, it's divided by three. It's probably closer to real. Because speakers, like most speakers, I try never to be this. Most speakers will tell you they're doing great because they need it for their egos. So just like be a real person. That will help you move forward. Know that your journey is exactly right. Know that your talent level is exactly right. The next opportunity will come. It just does. There are roughly 6,000 gigs in the States for this stuff every day. You just need to pick up the phone and call anybody, and they're like, "Yo, okay." Like if you even pretend you know what you're talking about, they're like, "Oh, buy that," because they genuinely don't know and they don't care. They need people. So dive in, go hard, like try. Because it's such a low bar, you can just do, and you will find something that will come back to you. I promise.
All right. Well, Pat, I mean, seriously, we can't thank you enough. He just volunteered his time to do this. He was excited and a wealth of information. This is absolutely fantastic. So connect with Pat if that's of interest. Email him, take him up on that offer to email him and ask him a question or two. And then reminder, September 12th is our next session with Nikki Groom. We're going to do some deep diving into brand, website review, all of that kind of stuff. If you have other ideas, shoot them at me. I'm still working on getting a fashion consultant to do like sort of a one-off bonus session for those of us who are interested in, figuring out how we can use our wardrobe a little more effectively. But again, reach out to Pat, reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, concerns, all that stuff. But thank you all. Fantastic conversation. Take care.
Thanks, friend. Thanks for coming.
Thank you all.
Bye
Bye.
now.